Good afternoon and welcome to DETV News. I'm Kaylynn Pride, and we begin with a train and vehicle crash that happened on the University of Delaware campus. The Newark Police Department responded to the reported collision at the CSX Railroad crossing on West Main Street and New London Road. The investigation indicated that the struck vehicle was traveling southbound on New London Road and turned right onto the train tracks and became disabled. Realizing that the car was stuck on the tracks, all passengers quickly exited the vehicle, but almost immediately, the eastbound CSX train approached and struck the vehicle. Two of the passengers were still around the area when the vehicle was struck and sustained serious life-threatening injuries. Both were taken to Christiana Hospital by paramedics. The incident is still under investigation, and anyone with information related to the collision is asked to contact Newark Police. If you happen to see a large number of emergency responders at the Wilmington-Newcastle Airport, know that it was just a drill. A full-scale emergency disaster exercise was set in place to test emergency plans and procedures, communication framework, and coordination abilities among participants. The federally mandated mass casualty exercise is performed every 3 years in an effort to evaluate all responding agencies.
We test all of the capabilities that each responding agency that would participate in an actual emergency, everything from communications, emergency transport of victims to the hospitals in the area, and most importantly, we get everybody prepared for an actual emergency.
Last month, Senator Tom Carper, Chris Coons, and Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester announced nearly $100 million for Delaware projects in the appropriations bill. In a recent press conference, Senator Carper announced $4.8 million that will go towards expanding South Wilmington. Joined by leaders from the Senate, Environment, and Public Works Committee, the funds were announced to help kickstart sewer upgrades in the city.
But let me just say, with this $4.8 million, city is going to be able to make the sewer expansion and improvements it needs to allow for phase 2 and phase 3 of the Riverfront East.
The sewer project is a critical component to the future development of the communities in South Wilmington. The expansion will include a new sewage pumping station and a force main. These upgrades will help migrate the flooding that has often taken place in parts of South Wilmington and negatively impacts the adjacent South Bridge community. It was Earth Day this past weekend, and many Delawareans celebrated by being environmentally friendly. Governor John Carney started his day by keeping Delaware litter-free and cleaning Route 9 in Newcastle. The city of Newcastle is a member of the Delaware Anti-Litter Alliance. Launched in May of 2019, towns, cities, and organizations that have joined pledge to encourage their residents and members to not litter, pursue anti-litter policies, and hold at least one litter cleanup each year.
It's great to be here with the mayor and folks from Newcastle, our partners on keeping Delaware litter-free. This is Earth Day, and it's bigger than just litter, right?
While Governor Carney was helping clean up Newcastle, others were installing a new rain garden in Claymont. Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control Secretary Sean Garvin, along with representatives of Newcastle County, rolled up their sleeves to plant more than 600 native plants in the garden at Claymont Library. A strategic placed rain garden reduces runoff and flooding and filters pollutants carried in stormwater runoff. And finally, the Earth Day weekend celebration ended with an Open Streets party. Open Streets Wilmington is a collaborative initiative of urban bike projects, Westside Grows Together, and the Open Streets Wilmington. The purpose of this partnership is to encourage residents to preserve and protect the planet. Open Streets Wilmington takes place once a month, closing streets to motor vehicles and to create a safe space for outside activities. Switching gears now to our political correspondent, Kerwin Gaines, who will be bringing us news on what's happening with the National Minute.
This week on the National Minute, we'll be discussing mask mandates, federal student loans, and new developments surrounding the war in the Ukraine. Hi, I'm Kerwin Gaines, and as people push to feel normal again, federal mask mandates on airplanes have now been suspended. Since February of 2021, all airline passengers and employees in the United States have been required to wear face coverings inside airports and aboard airplanes. As mandates lift one by one for indoor and public spaces, the mask mandates for air travelers has also ended. This comes as a relief for some, but a nightmare for others, because though masks are optional, COVID-19 is still surging in multiple cities. Some recent polling suggests that during these uncertain times, Americans are almost evenly torn between wanting a mask and not wanting a mask. This decision is very alarming to those who have health conditions, because where there was once a small sense of safety, there is now panic and confusion for the future. More news from the Hill comes as President Biden makes moves to address federal student loans. During the 2020 election, one of his key points was canceling the American student loan debt. Now, 2 years into the pandemic, we've seen pause after pause, but no complete nationwide cancellation. As the cost of college in the United States continues to grow, the debt stands at $1.6 billion for 46 million borrowers. This is the highest amount of debt in any category for the United States. Earlier this week, President Biden announced a new program to drastically help some borrowers with repayment. This program is laying a groundwork for some Americans to experience the relief of debts being lifted from their shoulders. The new initiatives will help those on current income-driven repayment plans and finally address years of mismanagement that have kept Americans under the thumb of collegiate debt. The Department of Education stated any borrower with loans that have accumulated time in the repayment system of at least 20 to 25 years will see automatic forgiveness, even if you're not currently on an IDR plan. This new program is so broad that it has given many Americans hope for their future debt standing. Switching to the crisis in the Ukraine, as Russian troops have created a truly disastrous situation for all parties involved, Mariupol, a major city in the Ukraine, has been tied up in the war since its beginning. However, in the past week has proven to be a great struggle for both sides as Russia tries to claim victory over the region. Held up in a steel plant with civilians, the Ukrainian military have pledged to defend the city until the very end. On Sunday, Mariupol was under siege as Russian troops dropped a number of bombs in efforts to gain control over the territory. Where there was once talks of peace and agreements being made, has now become what some are calling a genocide. President Putin declared victory over the city on Thursday, even though a significant number of Ukrainians remain stuck. New images of mass grave sites surface as people have begun burying any bodies left in the street. The suspected death tolls have caused speculators to name the Mariupol the new Baban Yar, the battle during World War II that left 33,000 Jewish people dead. For some, this war is a nightmare as Ukraine is home to tens of thousands of Holocaust survivors. To date, 2 survivors are recorded to have lost their lives in this conflict. Most recently, 91-year-old Vanda Abankova died hiding in her basement after weeks without food and water. She was 10 years old when Nazi soldiers took control of Mariupol and executed her mother. After escaping to hide in a basement in 1941, Abankova's last words during this war were, "Why is this happening?" A question many hope to answer after first seeing an end to this situation. For DETV News, this is Kerwin Gaines.
And lastly, one lucky little girl got to fulfill her dreams of being a police officer for her birthday. Officer Robert Jones coordinated the birthday party for 5-year-old Bailey and 15 of her friends at Delaware State Troop 2 Station in Newark, Delaware. Bailey met Officer Jones a few years ago and since then says that she wants to serve in law enforcement when she grows up.
So about 2 years ago, Bailey was about 3 years old, and she met 3 police officers at a high school basketball game, and her eyes just lit up when she met them.
Our main thing with law enforcement, we're here to protect and serve, but again, we're part of the community. That's why it's important that we recognize we're part of one big family, which is the community, so it's important that we make a difference in people's lives.
Happy birthday to you. What do you say to everybody? Thank you.
Bailey, from DETV, we want to wish you a special happy birthday. Well, that's all for DETV News. I'm Kaylynn Pride, and be sure to check us out on social media, and we'll see you next time.